I should have known something was wrong when Rachel Martinez started showing up to work at 6 a.m. For 3 years, I'd been the first one in the office at Pinnacle Ventures, our small but ambitious tech startup in downtown Seattle. The rain would still be drumming against the floor-to-ceiling windows of our converted warehouse office as I nursed my first coffee of the day, watching the city wake up through the industrial glass. Rachel, my business partner and supposed best friend since college, rarely graced us with her presence before 9:30 a.m. But for the past 2 weeks, she'd been there in the dim morning light, hunched over her MacBook in the corner office we shared, claiming she was getting ahead on quarterly projections. I bought it because I wanted to believe her, because trust was the foundation our entire company was built on. The irony isn't lost on me now. "Emily, you're going to burn out if you keep this pace," Rachel had said just yesterday, her dark eyes filled with what I thought was genuine concern. She was perched on the edge of my desk, her perfectly manicured fingers drumming against the reclaimed wood surface we'd salvaged from a demolished warehouse in Pioneer Square. Maybe I should take the lead on the Silverstone presentation. Let you focus on the technical development side. Marcus Silverstone. The name that made every tech entrepreneur in the Pacific Northwest either salivate or break out in cold sweats. The venture capitalist who'd turned 3 Seattle startups into billion-dollar companies, whose Midas touch was legendary from Silicon Valley to Vancouver. Getting 15 minutes with him was like winning the lottery, and we'd been trying for 8 months. I should have seen the red flags. The way Rachel's voice carried a strange undertone when she mentioned Silverstone. The way she'd started asking detailed questions about our proprietary algorithm, questions that went beyond her usual surface-level understanding of our tech. The way she'd insisted on handling all communication with Silverstone's office, claiming she had a better rapport with high-stakes investors. "I've got this, Rach," I told her, not looking up from my laptop screen where lines of code scrolled past like digital rain. "I've been preparing for this presentation for 3 months. Every slide is perfect. Every demo is flawless. This is our shot. Our shot." Even now, those words taste bitter in my mouth. The morning of December 15th started like any other. Seattle's winter sky was its usual shade of concrete gray, and the coffee shop downstairs was already bustling with the pre-work rush. I'd arrived at 5:45 a.m., my stomach twisted with the kind of nervous excitement that comes with knowing your life is about to change forever. The presentation was scheduled for 2 p.m. at Silverstone's offices in the Columbia Center, the city's tallest building, where his firm occupied the entire 65th floor. I had everything memorized. Our user acquisition numbers, our revenue projections, the technical specifications of our proprietary matching algorithm that was revolutionizing how small businesses connected with freelance talent. Bridgework, that was our baby. My baby, really, though Rachel handled the business development side. The idea had come to me during a particularly brutal freelance period after college, when I was juggling 6 different clients and struggling to find quality projects that matched my skills. Traditional platforms took huge cuts and offered little protection for either side. I wanted to build something better, something that used machine learning to create perfect matches while protecting everyone involved. The algorithm was my masterpiece. 2 years of development, countless sleepless nights, and more lines of code than I cared to count. It was the heart of everything we'd built, the secret sauce that made Bridgework special. Rachel understood the business applications, but the technical implementation was entirely mine. I spent the morning running through my presentation one final time, checking and double-checking every slide, every transition, every talking point. Rachel was unusually quiet, typing furiously on her laptop with an intensity I'd never seen before. When I asked if she wanted to grab lunch before we headed to the Columbia Center, she barely looked up. "I'm not hungry," she muttered, her fingers never pausing on the keyboard. "You go ahead. I'll meet you there." The Seattle streets were slick with rain as I walked to the Columbia Center, my presentation materials safely stored in my weatherproof messenger bag. The building's lobby was all marble and steel, designed to intimidate. And for a moment, I felt like that scared college kid who'd maxed out her credit cards to fund her first startup attempt. But I wasn't that kid anymore. I was Emily Chen, co-founder of the next big thing in the gig economy. I had a revolutionary product, solid numbers, and a presentation that would knock Marcus Silverstone's socks off. At 1:45 p.m., I was sitting in the sleek waiting area outside Silverstone's office, my laptop open, making final adjustments to the slides. The receptionist, a polished woman in her 30s, had offered me water, coffee, or tea 3 times. I declined each time. My hands were shaky enough without caffeine. Rachel still hadn't arrived. At 1:55 p.m., I tried calling her, straight to voicemail. At 1:58 p.m., the receptionist informed me that Mr. Silverstone was ready to see me. "I'm just waiting for my business partner," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "She should be here any minute." "Of course," the receptionist smiled. "I'll let Mr. Silverstone know there will be a slight delay." At 2:05 p.m., with no word from Rachel, I made the decision to go in alone. I could handle this. I'd been handling everything else alone anyway. Marcus Silverstone was exactly what you'd expect from a top-tier venture capitalist. Silver-haired, immaculately dressed, with the kind of confident bearing that comes from making life-changing decisions before lunch every day. His office occupied a corner of the 65th floor, offering a panoramic view of Elliott Bay and the Olympic Mountains beyond. "Ms. Chen," he stood and extended his hand. His grip was firm, his smile genuine but measuring. "I understand your partner couldn't make it?" "Rachel is running a bit late," I said, setting up my laptop on the conference table. "But I'm prepared to walk you through everything we've built." What happened next was the best hour of my professional life. I was on fire. Every slide landed perfectly, every demo worked flawlessly, every question was answered with precision and confidence. Silverstone leaned forward in his chair, asking increasingly detailed questions about our user metrics, our competitive advantages, our scalability plans. I could see the interest growing in his eyes, could feel the electricity in the room as he began to understand what we'd built. "This matching algorithm," he said, pulling up one of my technical slides on his tablet. "The precision rate you're showing here, 98.7% successful matches. That's remarkable. How did you achieve this level of accuracy?" This was my moment. I launched into the technical explanation, walking him through the machine learning models, the data analysis techniques, the iterative improvements I'd made over 2 years of development. Silverstone nodded along, occasionally making notes, his expression growing more impressed by the minute. "The applications for this technology go far beyond freelance matching," he said finally. "Have you considered licensing the algorithm to other platforms?" We talked about scaling, about funding rounds, about the team we'd need to hire. By the time I started wrapping up the presentation, I was certain we had him. This was it, the moment that would change everything. "I have to say, Ms. Chen, I'm thoroughly impressed," Silverstone said, closing his tablet. "Your technology is exactly the kind of innovation we look for. The business model is sound, the market opportunity is enormous, and your execution has been flawless." My heart was pounding so hard I was sure he could hear it. "However," he continued, and that one word made my stomach drop, "I do have one question before we move forward." He reached for his phone, scrolled through something, then looked back at me with a puzzled expression. "I received another pitch earlier today. Very similar technology, very similar business model. The sender claimed to be from Bridgework as well." He turned his phone toward me, and I felt the blood drain from my face. There on his screen was an email from Rachel, sent at 11:47 a.m. The subject line read, "Bridgework, revised presentation materials." "The interesting thing," Silverstone continued, his voice taking on a harder edge, "is that this version has some significant differences from what you've shown me today. Different financial projections, different team structure, and—" He paused, his eyes studying my face carefully. "A different attribution for the core algorithm development." The room started spinning. I gripped the edge of the conference table, trying to process what I was hearing. "According to this version," Silverstone said, his voice now completely businesslike, "the algorithm was developed primarily by Ms. Martinez, with you handling the front-end implementation. That's quite different from the technical deep dive you just gave me, where you clearly positioned yourself as the primary developer." I opened my mouth to speak, but no words came out. The betrayal was so complete, so devastating that my brain couldn't quite process it. "So, I have to ask, Ms. Chen," Silverstone said, leaning back in his chair, "which version is accurate? And where's the one with her name on it? The presentation I'd spent 3 months perfecting, the slides I'd memorized, the demo I'd practiced hundreds of times. Rachel had tried to delete all of it. She'd tried to erase me from my own company, my own creation, my own life's work. But she'd made one crucial mistake. She'd underestimated just how paranoid a good developer can be about version control." The silence in Marcus Silverstone's office stretched for what felt like hours, but was probably only seconds. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, I could see the Seattle skyline blurred by December rain, the city continuing its daily rhythm while my world collapsed around me. "Mr. Silverstone," I said finally, my voice surprisingly steady despite the earthquake happening in my chest, "I need to show you something." My fingers moved across my laptop keyboard with muscle memory precision. Thank God for my obsessive backup habits. a trait I'd developed after losing a semester's worth of computer science projects to a hard drive crash in college. This is our company's internal Git repository, I explained, turning my laptop screen toward him. Every line of code, every commit, every change is timestamped and attributed. This algorithm, every function, every optimization, every breakthrough has my digital fingerprint on it. Silverstone leaned forward, his experienced eyes scanning the commit history. 2 years of development work laid out in chronological order. Each in committed, initial matching algorithm framework. Each in committed, improved accuracy through weighted preferences. Each in committed, machine learning integration v2.3. Page after page of my work, time-stamped and undeniable. Rachel's contributions, I continued, my voice gaining strength, are documented too. Business development, client relations, marketing strategies. She's been invaluable on the business side, but the core technology? That's mine. I pulled up the email Rachel had sent to Silverstone, the one where she'd tried to rewrite our company's history. Reading it felt like watching someone else wear my face, claim my achievements, steal my identity. She must have sent this while I was at lunch, I said, the pieces falling into place. She's been acting strange for weeks, asking detailed questions about the algorithm, insisting on handling all investor communications. Silverstone's expression had shifted from confusion to something that looked like respect mixed with wariness. So you're telling me your business partner attempted to steal credit for your work and present herself as the primary founder to potential investors? The words hung in the air like an accusation. Even hearing them out loud felt surreal. I started, then stopped. Because saying yes meant admitting that I'd been blind to my best friend's betrayal, that I'd trusted someone who was planning to destroy me, that 3 years of partnership, of shared dreams and late-night strategy sessions had been built on a lie. My phone buzzed. A text from Rachel. Sorry, couldn't make it. Food poisoning? How did it go? The casual tone, the fake concern, it was masterful manipulation. If I hadn't seen Silverstone's email, I might have actually felt sorry for her. Yes, I said finally. That's exactly what I'm telling you. Silverstone set down his tablet and leaned back in his chair. For a long moment, he studied me with the calculating gaze of someone who'd seen every variation of human ambition and betrayal in the business world. Ms. Chen, in 30 years of venture capital, I've seen partnerships implode over money, over control, over credit. But I've rarely seen someone document their case as thoroughly as you just did. He gestured toward my laptop. Your technical knowledge is clearly authentic, your code history is comprehensive, and frankly, your presentation today was far more impressive than the confused email I received from Ms. Martinez. Relief flooded through me, followed immediately by a new wave of anxiety. So what happens now? Now, Silverstone said, standing and walking to his window, you have a decision to make. You can pursue this investment with me, but it means dealing with the fact that your business partner just attempted corporate sabotage. Or you can walk away and try to sort out your internal issues first. The Seattle skyline stretched out below us. Millions of people living their lives, pursuing their dreams, fighting their battles. I thought about all those nights I'd stayed up coding, fueled by coffee and determination, building something I believed could change how people work and connect. She's going to claim it was a misunderstanding, I said quietly. That she was trying to help, that she got confused about the technical details. Probably, Silverstone agreed. The question is, what are you going to do about it? What was I going to do? Rachel wasn't just my business partner. She was my oldest friend, my college roommate, the person who'd helped me through my parents' divorce and my grandmother's death. She was supposed to be my co-founder, not my saboteur. But she tried to steal everything I'd built. She tried to erase me from my own company. I want to move forward, I said, the words coming out stronger than I felt. Bridgework is my company, my technology, my vision. I won't let anyone take that away from me. Silverstone turned back to me, and I saw something in his expression that hadn't been there before. Approval. All right, Ms. Chen, let's talk numbers. The next hour was a blur of term sheets and valuation discussions, of equity percentages and board compositions. Silverstone was offering $3.2 million for a 25% stake, exactly the kind of funding that would let us scale properly, hire the team we needed, and compete with the established players in the market. I'll need some time to review the legal structure, I said, trying to sound professional while my mind raced through the implications. And I need to address the partnership situation. Of course, take the weekend. But Ms. Chen? Silverstone's tone grew serious. Whatever you decide about Ms. Martinez, Make sure you're protecting your intellectual property. What you've built is valuable, and there are people who would do anything to get their hands on it. The elevator ride down from the 65th floor felt like descending from heaven back to earth. In the span of 2 hours, I'd gone from triumph to betrayal to a potential path forward that didn't include my oldest friend. My phone had been buzzing constantly. More texts from Rachel, increasingly frantic as she realized I wasn't responding to her fake food poisoning story. Emily, are you okay? I feel terrible about missing the meeting. How did Silverstone react? Did he reschedule? Call me when you get this. I have some ideas for our next approach. Each message felt like another small betrayal, another lie built on top of the massive deception she'd attempted. The December rain had intensified by the time I reached street level, turning downtown Seattle into an impressionist painting of blurred lights and moving shadows. I ducked into the first coffee shop I found, a small place tucked between a bookstore and a vintage clothing boutique, and tried to process what had just happened. I ordered a double-shot espresso and found a corner table where I could think. The coffee shop was warm and loud, filled with the kind of productive energy that made Seattle's coffee culture legendary. Students hunched over laptops, business people conducting hushed phone calls, artists sketching in notebooks, everyone pursuing their version of the American dream. My phone rang. Rachel's contact photo filled the screen, a picture from our college graduation, both of us grinning with our arms around each other, ready to conquer the world together. I let it go to voicemail. Then I opened my laptop and started documenting everything. Every email, every conversation, every moment over the past few weeks that suddenly made sense in the context of Rachel's betrayal. If this was going to turn ugly, and I was starting to suspect it would, I needed to be prepared. The coffee shop's Wi-Fi was strong, and within minutes I was logged into our company's shared Google Drive, the digital repository where we stored all our business documents, client files, and strategic plans. Rachel had access to everything, just as I did. We'd built our company on trust and transparency. That trust was about to cost me. As I scrolled through our shared folders, I noticed something that made my blood run cold. Several files had been modified that morning, while I was preparing for the Silverstone meeting. Financial projections, client lists, even our employee handbook, all updated with subtle but significant changes. In our financial projections, my equity stake had been reduced from 60% to 35%, with a note claiming it reflected revised founder contributions. In our client communications, Rachel had been positioned as the primary technical contact. In our business plan, the algorithm development timeline had been rewritten to suggest collaborative development rather than my individual work. She hadn't just tried to steal credit for my algorithm. She'd been systematically rewriting our entire company history, creating a paper trail that would support her version of events. The coffee shop suddenly felt too small, too warm, too full of people living normal lives while mine imploded. I packed up my laptop and stepped back into the rain, letting the cold December drizzle wash over me as I tried to figure out my next move. My phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't Rachel. It was my lawyer, David Kim, a sharp corporate attorney who'd helped us navigate the initial incorporation paperwork. Emily, I just got a very interesting call from Rachel Martinez. She wants to schedule an emergency meeting about protecting Bridgeworks' intellectual property from potential theft. Care to explain what's going on? The betrayal was complete. Rachel wasn't just trying to steal my work. She was trying to flip the script entirely, positioning herself as the victim and me as the thief. David, I said, my voice steady despite the storm raging in my chest. We need to talk. Tonight. My office, 7 p.m., he said immediately. And Emily, bring everything. Every email, every document, every piece of evidence you have. If Rachel Martinez is playing the game I think she's playing, we need to be ready for war. As I hung up the phone, standing in the rain outside a coffee shop in downtown Seattle, I realized that the girl who'd walked into Marcus Silverstone's office that afternoon, the one who still believed in trust and friendship and fair play, was gone forever. The woman walking out was someone different, someone harder, someone who understood that in the world of tech startups and venture capital, your best friend could become your worst enemy between lunch and dinner, and someone who was ready to fight for everything she'd built. David Kim's law office occupied the 12th floor of a glass tower in Belltown, with a view of Elliott Bay that would have been beautiful if I'd been in any state to appreciate it. The rain had stopped, but the December sky remained the color of old pewter, matching my mood perfectly. I'd spent the 3 hours between my phone call and the meeting methodically gathering evidence. Every email, every document, every piece of code that proved Bridgework was my creation. My messenger bag was stuffed with printed documentation, and my laptop contained enough digital evidence to build a fortress around my intellectual property. David was waiting for me in his conference room, a manila folder already open in front of him. At 45, he was the kind of lawyer every tech entrepreneur needed. Sharp enough to spot trouble from a mile away, experienced enough to have seen every variety of corporate betrayal, and ethical enough to shoot straight even when the truth hurt. "Before you say anything," he began as I settled into the leather chair across from him, "I need to tell you that Rachel Martinez called me again this afternoon. She's claiming you attempted to forge her signature on several key documents and that you've been planning to force her out of the company." The accusation hit me like a physical blow. "That's completely—" "I know." David held up his hand. "I've been your attorney for 3 years, Emily. I know who you are and I know who did the actual work to build Bridgework. But Rachel is playing a very sophisticated game here, and we need to understand the full scope of what we're dealing with." He slid a document across the table. "This is what she filed with the Secretary of State's office at 4:30 p.m. today. Amendment to Articles of Incorporation, changing the company structure and reassigning founding roles." I stared at the paperwork, my vision blurring with rage. Rachel had attempted to legally rewrite our company's foundation, positioning herself as the majority founder and primary technology developer. The signature at the bottom looked like mine, but I'd never seen the document before in my life. "She forged my signature," I said quietly. "That's what I believe, yes. But proving forgery in court can be complicated, especially when there's an existing business relationship and shared access to company documents." David leaned forward. "Emily, I need you to walk me through everything that happened today, starting from the moment you woke up." For the next hour, I laid out the entire timeline. The strange behavior over the past weeks, the email to Silverstone, the attempted rewriting of our company history, the systematic changes to our shared documents. David took notes, occasionally asking clarifying questions, his expression growing grimmer with each revelation. "This is corporate sabotage," he said finally. "Attempted theft of intellectual property, fraud, forgery. Rachel has committed several felonies in the span of a single day. But can we prove it?" David smiled. And for the first time since lunch, I felt a glimmer of hope. "Emily, you're a software developer. You document everything. Your Git commits, your file access logs, your email timestamps. You've created a digital paper trail that would make a forensic accountant weep with joy." He pulled out his laptop and began typing. "We're going to file an emergency injunction first thing Monday morning, freezing all company assets and preventing any further changes to corporate documents. Then we're going to demand a full forensic audit of all company systems and communications." "What about Silverstone's offer?" "That's the beautiful part," David said. "His offer was made to you personally, based on your presentation and your technology. Rachel's attempt to sabotage it actually helps our case. It demonstrates clear intent to steal intellectual property and defraud investors." My phone buzzed. Another message from Rachel. "Emily, I'm really worried about you. You haven't returned any of my calls. Can we meet for dinner? I have some exciting news about a potential investor." The casual manipulation was breathtaking. She was still playing the concerned friend while simultaneously filing fraudulent paperwork and spreading lies to our attorney. "Should I respond?" I asked David. "Absolutely not. From this moment forward, all communication goes through me. Rachel Martinez has declared war, whether she realizes it or not. And in war, you don't give your enemy intelligence about your strategy." David's phone rang. He glanced at the caller ID and frowned. "Speak of the devil. It's Rachel." "Don't answer it," I said quickly. "Actually, I think I will. But you're going to listen in." He activated the speakerphone and accepted the call. "David, thank God." Rachel's voice filled the conference room. She sounded frantic, desperate. "I've been trying to reach Emily all day. I think someone might be trying to hack into our company systems. Several documents have been altered and I'm worried that—" "Miss Martinez," David interrupted, his voice professionally neutral. "I'm going to stop you right there. I'm currently in a meeting regarding Bridgeworks' corporate structure, and I need to advise you that any further discussion should involve your own legal representation." There was a long pause. When Rachel spoke again, her voice had changed completely. Gone was the frantic friend, replaced by something cold and calculating. "I see. And I suppose Emily is there with you, filling your head with lies about my contributions to this company. Ms. Martinez, I strongly advise you to retain counsel before making any further statements." "You know what, David? You're right. I should have gotten my own lawyer months ago when Emily started trying to push me out of my own company. The mask was off now, her true feelings spilling out. But I'm not going to let her steal what I've built. Bridgework was my idea, my vision, my connections that made it possible. I started to respond, but David held up a warning finger. Ms. Martinez, this conversation is being recorded, and you're making statements that could be used in legal proceedings. I strongly recommend you end this call and speak with an attorney. Fine, but tell Emily that this isn't over. I'm not going to let her destroy everything we've worked for. The line went dead. David and I sat in silence for a moment, the weight of Rachel's threats hanging in the air. Well, David said finally, that was illuminating. She just gave us several admissions that will be very useful in court, including implied acknowledgement that she's been altering company documents. She sounded, I searched for the right word, unhinged. She sounded scared, David corrected. People do desperate things when they're backed into a corner, and Rachel Martinez is starting to realize that her plan isn't working. We spent another hour going through legal strategy, preparing documents for Monday's injunction filing, and discussing the potential timeline for resolving the dispute. By the time I left David's office, it was nearly 10 p.m., and downtown Seattle had taken on its nighttime personality. Neon reflections on wet pavement, the distant sound of music from bars and restaurants, the energy of a city that never quite sleeps. I should have gone home to my apartment in Capitol Hill, should have tried to get some rest before what promised to be a brutal few weeks. Instead, I found myself walking toward our office in the converted warehouse district, drawn by some masochistic need to see the scene of the crime. The building was dark except for the security lights in the lobby, but I had my key card and the access code. The elevator ride to the 4th floor felt like ascending to a crime scene, which, in a way, it was. Our office was exactly as I'd left it that morning, my desk cluttered with coffee cups and technical manuals, Rachel's corner neat and organized, the whiteboard still covered with our strategic planning session from the previous week. Everything looked normal, but it felt contaminated by betrayal. I sat down at my desk and opened my laptop, connecting to our internal network. The activity logs told a story of systematic deception. Rachel had accessed dozens of files throughout the day, making subtle changes to company documents, client communications, and even our employee handbook. She'd been building a case for her version of events, creating documentation that would support her claims in any legal dispute. But she'd made one crucial error. Every change was timestamped and logged. Every modification left a digital fingerprint. Every lie she'd tried to embed in our company records was documented with forensic precision. I spent the next 2 hours taking screenshots, downloading files, and building a comprehensive record of Rachel's deception. The evidence was overwhelming. No court in the world would believe her version of events when confronted with this level of documentation. As I worked, I found myself thinking about the early days of Bridgework, when Rachel and I would stay in this office until 2 a.m., fueled by pizza and dreams of changing the world. She'd been the one who encouraged me to take the leap from freelancing to building a company. She'd been the one who believed in my vision when everyone else thought I was crazy. When had that changed? When had she decided that she deserved credit for my work, that she could rewrite history to suit her ambitions? My phone buzzed. A new email, sent to my personal account rather than my business address. From Rachel. Emily, I know you're angry, and I understand why. I made some mistakes today, acted out of panic and fear. Can we please talk? Really talk? Just the two of us, without lawyers and accusations? We've been friends for too long to let this destroy everything. I'm at Victrola on 15th, our old spot. Please come. R. Victrola Coffee on 15th Avenue. We'd spent countless hours there during college, studying for exams, planning our futures, dreaming about the companies we'd build together. It was neutral ground, a place filled with good memories. It was also, I realized, a trap. David had been clear. No communication without legal representation. Rachel was desperate now, trying to manipulate our friendship to get me to make statements that could be used against me in court. But part of me, the part that still remembered our college graduation photo, still remembered her helping me through my parents' divorce, wanted to go, wanted to hear her explanation, wanted to understand how we'd gotten to this point. I closed my laptop and gathered my things, not because I was going to meet Rachel, but because I'd accomplished what I came for. I had everything I needed to prove that Bridgework was mine, that Rachel's betrayal was documented and undeniable. As I waited for the elevator, my phone rang. David Kim's number. Emily, please tell me you're not at the office at 11:30 p.m. I was gathering evidence, I said, but I'm leaving now. Good. And please tell me you're not planning to meet Rachel for coffee. I hesitated. How did you? Because she sent the same message to me, asking if I thought you'd be willing to meet. Emily, this is classic manipulation. She's trying to get around legal representation, trying to get you to say something that could compromise our case. I know. I said, stepping into the elevator. I'm not going. Good. Because tomorrow, this gets much more complicated. I've been doing some research into Rachel's background, and there are some things we need to discuss. What kind of things? The kind that suggest this wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision. Emily, I think Rachel has been planning this for months. The elevator reached the ground floor, and I stepped out into the empty lobby. Through the glass doors, I could see the Seattle night, streetlights reflecting on wet pavement, the distant glow of the Space Needle, a city full of people pursuing their dreams while mine hung in the balance. David, I said, whatever you found, we'll deal with it. I'm not letting her win. I know you won't. But Emily, be careful. People who plan betrayals this carefully don't usually stop at just one crime. As I hung up the phone and stepped out into the December night, I realized that the war David had mentioned wasn't just beginning. It had been going on for months without my knowledge. Rachel Martinez had been playing a long game, and I was just now learning the rules. The next morning brought the kind of crystalline Seattle winter day that made you forget about months of rain. From my apartment window in Capitol Hill, I could see Mount Rainier standing proud against a backdrop of impossible blue sky, the kind of view that normally filled me with optimism and possibility. Today, it just reminded me how much I had to lose. David had called at 7 a.m. with news that made my coffee taste like ash. Rachel filed a lawsuit at 6:45 this morning. She's claiming you stole her intellectual property, forged her signature on investor documents, and conspired to force her out of the company she founded. She beat us to court, I said, sinking into my kitchen chair. She tried to. But Emily, she made a critical error. She filed in King County Superior Court instead of federal court, which means the case will be heard by a judge who specializes in local business disputes rather than intellectual property law. David's voice carried a note of grim satisfaction. Plus, filing first doesn't make her accusations true. It just means we respond with a countersuit that will bury her in evidence. I spent the morning in David's office, reviewing Rachel's lawsuit line by line. Reading her accusations was like watching someone else inhabit my life and twist every shared memory into a weapon. According to Rachel's version of events, she had conceived of Bridgework during our senior year of college, developed the initial business plan, and recruited me to handle the technical implementation of her vision. The matching algorithm, she claimed, was based on her original specifications and theoretical framework, with my role limited to coding and debugging. She accused me of gradually assuming more control over the company, excluding her from technical decisions, and eventually attempting to steal her intellectual property by rewriting company documents and forging her signature on investor communications. It was a masterpiece of manipulation, taking every collaborative moment we'd shared and reframing it as evidence of my deception. The good news, David said, spreading documents across his conference table, is that she's made several provable false statements. The bad news is that she's hired Morrison, Kellner, and Associates. I recognized the name. One of Seattle's most prestigious corporate law firms, the kind that charged $800 an hour and won cases through sheer overwhelming force. How is she affording them? David's expression darkened. That's what I discovered yesterday evening. Rachel Martinez didn't just wake up one morning and decide to steal your company, Emily. She's been planning this for months, and she has backing. He slid a document across the table, a bank record showing a $50,000 deposit into Rachel's personal account, dated 3 weeks earlier. The money came from Apex Ventures, Marcus Silverstone's biggest competitor in the Pacific Northwest market. They've been trying to get their hands on matching algorithm technology for over a year, and they were willing to pay Rachel to deliver it to them. The room started spinning. Rachel hadn't just betrayed me, she'd sold me out to our biggest competitor. Apex has been struggling to develop competitive matching technology, David continued. Their platform has a 67% success rate compared to your 98.7%. They needed your algorithm, and Rachel was their inside track to getting it. I stared at the bank record, trying to process the magnitude of the betrayal. $50,000. That's what 3 years of friendship, partnership, and shared dreams had been worth to Rachel. There's more, David said grimly. Yesterday evening, after our phone call, I hired a private investigator to dig into Rachel's recent activities. What we found suggests this conspiracy goes deeper than just Apex Ventures. He opened his laptop and turned it toward me. On the screen was a series of photographs taken with a telephoto lens. Rachel sitting in an upscale restaurant with 2 men in expensive suits. Documents spread across the table between them. This was taken last Wednesday while you were homesick with the flu. The men are Jonathan Hayes and Richard Thornton, Apex's head of business development and their chief technology officer. I remembered that day clearly. I'd been laid up with a brutal flu bug, and Rachel had insisted on handling all business operations. She'd even brought me soup, playing the role of concerned friend while secretly plotting my destruction. They weren't just paying her for information, David continued. They were coaching her on how to systematically undermine your position in the company, how to document a paper trail that would support her claims, and how to time the legal attack for maximum damage. The photographs told the story. Rachel leaning forward intently as Hayes gestured toward documents, Thornton taking notes on his tablet, all three of them laughing at something that, in context, was probably a joke about my naivety. Emily, David said gently, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest. Has Rachel had access to your algorithm source code? The question hit me like a punch to the stomach. Yes. We've always maintained complete transparency in the company. She has administrative access to all our systems. When was the last time you checked the access logs? I pulled out my laptop with trembling fingers, logged into our development server, and pulled up the access records. What I saw there made me physically sick. Rachel had been copying files for weeks, not just accessing them, but downloading complete copies of the algorithm source code, the training data sets, the optimization models, everything that made Bridgeworks technology superior to our competitors. She's been systematically stealing our intellectual property, I whispered. The whole time she was pretending to be my friend, she was copying everything we've built. And now Apex has it all, David said. Which means we're not just fighting a lawsuit. We're racing against time to prevent them from launching a competing platform using your stolen technology. My phone buzzed. A text message from an unknown number. Emily, this is Jonathan Hayes from Apex Ventures. I believe we should meet to discuss a mutually beneficial resolution to the current legal situation. I'm prepared to make you a very generous offer. I showed the message to David, who swore under his breath. They're moving fast, he said. They want to settle before this gets to court, before their involvement becomes public record. What kind of offer do you think they're talking about? The kind that would make you rich and silent, David replied. They'll offer you enough money to walk away from Bridgework, sign a non-disclosure agreement, and let them have your technology without a fight. It was a tempting thought, honestly. After the past 48 hours of betrayal and legal warfare, the idea of taking a buyout and starting fresh somewhere else had appeal. I could move to San Francisco or Austin or Boston. I could build something new, something that Rachel Martinez and Apex Ventures couldn't touch, but that would mean letting them win. It would mean letting Rachel profit from her betrayal, letting Apex benefit from corporate espionage, letting every unethical competitor in the tech world know that theft and manipulation were acceptable strategies. I'm not taking their money, I said. David smiled. I was hoping you'd say that, because I have a better idea. He pulled out another document, a letter of intent from Marcus Silverstone's firm. I called Silverstone this morning and explained the situation. He's not just still interested in investing. He's furious about Apex's attempt to steal technology through corporate espionage. He's prepared to fast-track our funding, and he's bringing in federal prosecutors to investigate the conspiracy. Federal prosecutors? Theft of trade secrets across state lines, wire fraud, conspiracy to commit corporate espionage. This is serious federal crime territory, Emily. Rachel and her Apex handlers are looking at potential prison time. The magnitude of what Rachel had gotten herself into was staggering. She'd gone from attempted credit theft to conspiracy with a major corporation to commit federal crimes. The scared college friend who'd called David's office yesterday was about to discover just how deep the hole she'd dug really was. What do we do now? Now we go to war properly, David said. I'm filing a federal lawsuit this afternoon, naming Rachel, Apex Ventures, and everyone involved in the conspiracy. We're seeking damages, injunctive relief, and criminal prosecution. And Emily, we're going to win. The rest of the day passed in a blur of legal preparation, document review, and strategic planning. David's office became a war room, with associates rushing in and out, phones ringing constantly, and the kind of controlled chaos that comes with high-stakes litigation. At 4 p.m., my phone rang. Rachel's number. Should I answer it? I asked David. Actually, yes. But put it on speaker, and don't say anything that could be construed as an admission or settlement offer. I accepted the call. Hello, Rachel. Emily. Her voice was strained, desperate. We need to talk. This whole situation has gotten completely out of hand. I'm listening. Look, I made some mistakes. I got scared about the future of the company and I made some bad decisions. But we can fix this. We can make this right. David was taking notes, his expression focused and predatory. What are you proposing? I asked. I'll withdraw the lawsuit. We'll go back to our original partnership agreement. 50-50 split, shared decision-making, the way it was supposed to be from the beginning. It was a reasonable offer. The kind of compromise that might have worked if Rachel had approached me honestly weeks ago. But she'd crossed too many lines, stolen too much, betrayed too completely. What about Apex Ventures? I asked. There was a long pause. I don't know what you're talking about. Rachel, I know about the $50,000. I know about the meetings with Hayes and Thornton. I know about the copied source code. Another pause, longer this time. When Rachel spoke again, her voice had changed. Gone was the pleading friend, replaced by someone cold and calculating. You can't prove any of that. Actually, I can. Bank records, photographs, server logs. We have everything, Rachel. Then you know that Apex is prepared to make both of us very wealthy. This doesn't have to be a zero-sum game, Emily. There's enough money here for everyone to win. David was nodding, writing furiously. Rachel was implicating herself further with every word. So you admit you've been working with Apex to steal Bridgeworks technology? I admit that I've been exploring all options for maximizing the value of what we've built together. Rachel's voice was gaining strength as if she'd found her footing in familiar territory, the language of business justification. Emily, you're brilliant at code, but you're naive about business. Apex isn't our enemy, they're our exit strategy. Our exit strategy? Rachel, they're our biggest competitor. You've been selling them our secrets. I've been negotiating our acquisition? Do you think Silverstone is the only game in town? Apex is prepared to offer us $20 million for bridge work, with guaranteed employment contracts and equity in their platform. It's a better deal than anything Silverstone could offer. The audacity was breathtaking. She was trying to reframe corporate espionage as business development, betrayal as negotiation strategy. And you decided to pursue this behind my back because I knew you'd react exactly like this. You'd get all self-righteous about our vision and our independence instead of seeing the bigger picture. Sometimes, Emily, you have to make hard decisions for the good of the company. David held up a sign. Keep her talking. So the lawsuit, the forged documents, the attempt to steal credit for my algorithm, that was all for the good of the company? I was protecting us both. Apex needed to believe they were dealing with the primary founder and technology developer. If they thought you were the key decision maker, they would have approached you directly, and you would have blown up the whole deal. Rachel had just confessed to fraud, conspiracy, and theft of trade secrets on a recorded phone line. David was practically glowing with satisfaction. Rachel, I said quietly, you've destroyed everything we built together. No, Emily, I saved it, and I'm still trying to save it. Meet me tonight. Let me show you the full terms of Apex's offer. Let me prove to you that this is the right move for both of us. Where? Our office, 8 p.m. Just us, no lawyers, no games. I'll show you everything. The contracts, the financial projections, the employment guarantees. You'll see that this is the best possible outcome for Bridgework. David was shaking his head violently, but I had an idea. All right, I said. I'll be there. Emily, thank you. I knew you'd see reason eventually. This is going to work out perfectly for both of us. After I hung up, David stared at me like I'd lost my mind. Emily, you cannot meet with her alone. She's desperate, she's backed into a corner, and she's just confessed to multiple felonies. Desperate people do unpredictable things. I'm not going alone, I said, but I want to hear what she has to say. I want to understand how deep this conspiracy goes, and I want her to incriminate herself further. It's too dangerous. David, she's my oldest friend. Whatever else she's done, she's not going to physically harm me. But even as I said the words, I realized I didn't really know Rachel Martinez anymore. The woman who'd spent 3 years planning my professional destruction, who'd sold our company's secrets for $50,000, who'd tried to steal credit for years of my work, that woman was a stranger. And strangers, especially desperate ones facing federal prosecution, were capable of anything. At 7:45 p.m., I stood outside our office building in the December cold, watching the fourth-floor windows for signs of Rachel's presence. David had insisted on positioning a private investigator in a car across the street, with instructions to call 911 if I didn't emerge within 2 hours. I rode the elevator to the 4th floor, my heart pounding with a mixture of fear and anticipation. This was where it would end, in the office where we dreamed together, planned together, and built something beautiful together before Rachel decided to destroy it all. The office door was unlocked. Rachel was sitting at her desk, illuminated by the warm glow of her monitor, looking for all the world like she was working late on a normal Tuesday evening. "Emily," she said, looking up with a smile that almost seemed genuine. "I'm so glad you came." "Show me the contracts," I said, not bothering with pleasantries. Rachel gestured to her laptop screen. "It's all here. $20 million, Emily. Guaranteed employment at senior executive levels. Equity participation in Apex's platform expansion. We'd be set for life. I moved closer to read the documents, and what I saw there made my stomach drop. The contracts were real, detailed, and comprehensive. Apex wasn't just buying our technology, they were buying us, our silence, and our complicity in corporate theft. This is blood money, I said. This is freedom, Rachel countered. Emily, we're 26 years old. Do you really want to spend the next 5 years fighting legal battles and struggling to compete with established players? Or do you want to take $20 million and use it to build something even better? For a moment, I could see the appeal. $20 million would solve every problem, end every worry, provide security for the rest of my life. I could walk away from the betrayal, the lawsuits, the federal investigations, and start fresh with more money than I'd ever dreamed of having. But it would also mean validating Rachel's methods. It would mean telling every unethical competitor in the tech world that stealing was acceptable as long as you shared the profits. I can't do it, I said. Rachel's expression hardened. Then you're a fool. Maybe, but I'm a fool who can sleep at night. You think you're so moral, so pure. Rachel stood up, her voice rising. But Emily, you're just naive. This is how business works in the real world. This is how successful people get ahead. By stealing from their friends? By recognizing opportunities and acting on them. Do you think Marcus Silverstone built his fortune by being nice? Do you think any successful entrepreneur got where they are by playing fair? The mask was completely off now. This was who Rachel Martinez really was. Someone who saw friendship as weakness, ethics as naivety, and betrayal as business strategy. I'm leaving, I said, turning toward the door. Emily, wait. Rachel's voice had changed again, becoming pleading, desperate. Please. I made mistakes, but I can fix this. We can still work together. We can still be friends. I turned back to face her. Rachel, we stopped being friends the moment you decided to steal from me. We stopped being partners the moment you conspired with our competitors. And we stopped having anything to discuss the moment you tried to erase me from my own company. You're making a huge mistake, she said, her voice cold again. Apex won't just disappear because you're too proud to take their money. They have our technology now, Emily. They're going to launch a competing platform whether you cooperate or not. At least this way, you get paid. Let them try, I said. My algorithm is more than just code. It's 2 years of optimization, iteration, and improvement. They have the framework, but they don't have the understanding. They'll never match our success rate. You're betting everything on that assumption. I'm betting everything on the truth, I said. And the truth is that Bridgework is mine, the algorithm is mine, and no amount of corporate espionage or legal manipulation will change that. I walked toward the door, then stopped and turned back one final time. Rachel, you could have had everything. We could have built something amazing together, something that changed how people work and connect. Instead, you chose $50,000 and the approval of people who will discard you the moment you're no longer useful. Emily, don't contact me again. Don't call me. Don't text me. Don't show up at my apartment. Our friendship died the moment you decided to betray me. And our partnership died the moment you tried to steal my life's work. I left Rachel sitting alone in the office we'd shared, surrounded by the remnants of dreams she'd chosen to destroy for money. 3 weeks later, I sat in Marcus Silverstone's office again, this time with David Kim beside me and a signed investment agreement on the table. Federal prosecutors had filed charges against Rachel, Jonathan Hayes, and Richard Thornton for conspiracy to commit theft of trade secrets. Apex Ventures was facing a Justice Department investigation that would likely result in millions in fines and criminal prosecution for their executives. Bridgeworks' Series A funding round had closed at a $15 million valuation, with Silverstone taking a 20% stake and providing the resources we needed to scale properly. We'd hired a team of brilliant developers and business professionals who shared our vision of ethical, innovative technology. There's one more thing, Silverstone said, sliding a newspaper across his desk. The Seattle Times business section featured a front-page story about the corporate espionage case, with Rachel's photo prominently displayed above the headline, "Tech Executive Charged in Trade Secret Theft Conspiracy." She pled guilty yesterday, Silverstone continued. Cooperation agreement with federal prosecutors, probably looking at 18 months in federal prison and permanent disbarment from holding executive positions in tech companies. I stared at the photo of my former best friend, seeing a stranger in familiar features. The bright, ambitious college student who'd encouraged me to take risks and chase dreams had become someone willing to destroy everything for short-term gain. "Do you feel sorry for her?" David asked. I considered the question honestly. I feel sorry for who she used to be, I said finally, but I don't regret stopping who she became. 6 months later, Bridgework launched publicly to overwhelming success. Our matching algorithm achieved a 99.2% success rate, establishing us as the clear leader in freelance client matching technology. We had 12 full-time employees, partnerships with major corporations, and a waiting list of clients who wanted access to our platform. Rachel Martinez was serving her sentence at a minimum security federal prison in Oregon. Apex Ventures had paid $50 million in fines and faced ongoing criminal prosecution. Jonathan Hayes and Richard Thornton had been convicted of corporate espionage and sentenced to 3 years each. I sometimes wondered if there had been another way, if I could have confronted Rachel earlier, if our friendship could have been saved. But then I'd remember the bank records, the secret meetings, the systematic theft of everything I'd built, and I'd realize that the person I'd thought was my friend had never really existed. The real Rachel Martinez was someone who saw relationships as transactions, loyalty as weakness, and success as something to be taken rather than earned. And that person had gotten exactly what she deserved. Standing in our new office, a bright modern space in South Lake Union with views of Elliott Bay and room for 50 employees, I felt something I hadn't experienced since the day of my original presentation to Marcus Silverstone. Pure, uncomplicated pride in what I'd built. Bridgework wasn't just a successful company anymore. It was proof that ethics and success weren't mutually exclusive, that you could build something amazing without betraying the people who trusted you, that the right way was often the harder way but always the better way. Rachel had tried to steal my work, my company, and my future. Instead, she'd given me something far more valuable, the knowledge that I could survive betrayal, fight for what was right, and win. And in the end, that lesson was worth more than all the money Apex Ventures could have offered. The girl who'd walked into Marcus Silverstone's office that December afternoon, trusting and naive and believing the best of people, was gone forever. The woman who'd emerged from the wreckage of that betrayal was stronger, wiser, and more determined than ever. She was also, for the first time in her life, truly free.